Alright, next one up is a 2008 Sequoia. I've got the rear bumper here. The car's not here just yet, but I went ahead and got the parts for her. This is an OEM Toyota rear bumper cover. This is actually the third one I've replaced on the same car. So I've gotten pretty good at doing these. Had a little scratching in here, I guess, before it was packaged, so got a little body filler. Well, actually, that's actually bumper filler, the 3M 5887. You got a little of that in there to fill it in. Got to block that out. I scuffed this all with 400 and went down inside the scratch with a fiberglass pen before I put that on. But that's been on there for 2 or 3 days now. I just did that right when I got the bumper when I saw it. Gonna go ahead and go around it with gray Scotch-Brite. This is raw plastic. Toyota does not prime their bumper covers. At least I've never seen one that's been primed. So I'm going to go around and scuff all the way around the bumper. This is molded in, textured. So there's going to have to be a hard tape line here. I'm going to use fine line tape around this edge, all down in this groove, and then up this way, all the way around it. So it's going to go this way. Same thing over here, down, and then up. It's going to be fine line tape going this way, and I'll actually have to stop it there and start a new piece. I can't turn that radius. I've done that the past 2 times I've done this car. Turn here, and this will be one continuous piece of tape because there's an outside. This will be an outside bend. I can stretch it and do that, but I have to make sure that's ultra clean so it'll stick, not peel up while I'm painting it. And the same thing here. This is textured, so there's going to be a tape line down to that groove and wrapped around. You can see where it goes from smooth to textured. So the tape line will be right in the middle of that. Tape around this. It goes around the hitch, back down here and underneath. And it actually goes in a little bit here, so I have to scuff that for paint. There's actually not a whole lot of painted area here because of the step pad. But I'm going to go ahead and scuff everything and come back and I'll block this out, spray a little primer in this spot, and then right before I get ready to paint, I'll stick the tape along here and around. Then I'll go up along the edge with the Scotch-Brite on the tape and maybe even the fiberglass pen, just right up on that sharp edge so it'll stick. Be back when I got this thing scuffed. Alright, we got it scuffed. I actually prefer these raw bumpers over primed ones just because it sands so easily. You run the gray Scotch-Brite over this just like that right there and it's done. Doesn't take any effort at all. This is the blue tape I'm going to be using for the paint edge up to the step pad. I've got the 1/8 inch tape here, but this is more of this is the old tan type. I had some 1/4 inch of the same stuff, but I'm out of it and switched to this blue. It's a lot better. It sticks a lot better. This stuff didn't stick very well, and you couldn't really turn it and stretch it at all around a radius. But what I've done is I took the scuff pad and I scuffed right up to the edge. The tape will actually come across the textured part over to the back, so I'll end up painting along this corner back here a little bit, but I just ran the scuff pad up against where I know I'll tape. I've stayed away about a 1/4 inch, went all the way around, got it scuffed just right over this body line, right up to where I'm going to tape. I'll have to be taping in that area right there between the texture, where the texture goes back to smooth there. I'll tape right along that center of that groove. But I've got it scuffed all the way to this edge. Same thing all the way around here into this pocket. But everything else is completely scuffed. Did the same thing up to this edge with the gray Scotch-Brite. Went around in here. So once I get it taped, I'll go around it one more time with the Scotch-Brite and probably the fiberglass pen. But I don't want to tape it just yet because that'll just be that much longer the tape has to peel off. So I want to actually tape it along in here and around whenever I'm ready to paint it, because if it peels up, I'll have to lay the tape right back in the exact same place or further over, because I don't want to put the tape over sanding scratches, because then it'll show once I peel it off. And if I'm already close to the texture and the tape comes off, I'll have to try to follow right where I was before, or either move it over this way a little bit, and I don't want to get into the texture with it because then it'll show up really bad. So right before I get ready to paint it, I'll mask it off with the tape and I'll sand those edges. All this in here I'll have to cover with paper, and I'll wrap the paper around the back, and I'll seal I'll wrap the paper around and I'll seal it to the back here over these holes so that none of the overspray can come around the paper underneath and then get on the texture. Or when I'm spraying underneath the bottom, that overspray would blow up over into the paper. If it's not sealed to the bumper itself, you know, the overspray would get on here. This bumper's going to be gold. There's actually a little bit of damage right in here on the car. There's a separate panel from the quarter panel. There's a seam right about in here, and then the quarter panel starts. That piece there's got a dent in it. And I think it was the other side that I actually replaced. She hit this side really hard. I think it was the first time I did this. She dented that piece in, and it actually pushed in the quarter panel behind it. I replaced that piece. It's riveted to the car, and it's kind of a pain to do, so I'm just going to repair this side this time, which is not that bad. The other side, she had crushed it. Like I said, this is the third time I've done this, and it just makes more sense to buy a new bumper each time, because once you get into doing a repair up next to this textured step pad that's built in, and you try to do a repair in this area or anywhere near it, you end up building up your primer edge somewhere in here if your repair is right up to the edge, and then you've got a really thick edge there that you're trying to mask off and keep from chipping off later on. But it's just a lot easier and cleaner and faster to just buy a new bumper that's a clean slate, scuff it real quick, mask it off, and you don't have such a big thick film build where you did a repair. And it's going to cost her about the same anyway. The bumper's, I think, list price around $350, something like that, or maybe $400. I get a little bit of discount off of that. So by the time you spend all that time fixing one and all the labor involved, it's just not worth it. I'd make more money fixing these, but it's not going to be near as good a repair. This will be nice and clean. It's all perfect. I'll get a nice crisp edge with not much of an edge build there, and it'll be just like new. And I'm not going to use my best clear on this because she's probably just going to do it again. This is the third time in probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. So I'm just going to do it, you know, up to my quality standard, but it's not going to be something I know is going to have to last her. She'll probably end up doing it again, or either they'll get a new car. But I'll go ahead and do it right, but it's not going to be the very best clear. Everything else will be the same as I normally use. It'll be a little primer there, and once I get that blocked out, that'll be 600. Then I'll shoot adhesion promoter over the entire thing, which is actually the 2330S. I can show you that. I've got that in an aerosol, which I don't really like because it doesn't spray very fine. It kind of splatters. Got that in this aerosol back here, but this is the 2330S, and this is what clogs my gun up. I have to take the strainer out of it and clean it every time I use it, but I got to mix that really well, and I can spray it through my gun. And I'll have to coat the entire bumper. It's kind of a medium coat of that, and it's kind of a bluish green color. And then that has to be sealed, so it'll get a coat of sealer, which I think is going to be value shade 4 or 5. I'll have to look at the paint color. And then, you know, 2 or 3 coats of base coat, and then 2 coats of clear, and that'll be done. What I'm going to do is go ahead and try to get this blocked out, prime it. Even though the car's not here, I'd like to prime that spot and this place on the quarter. But I want to have this thing ready to go. I don't want to wait and try to get this done. I only got the car for 3 days. She can hardly ever leave with me. She's got 3 kids, and she never wants to give her car up. So I've got it for 3 days. This weekend, I wanted to paint this before it even got here, but what I'll do is I'll get that primed, and then when it gets here that night, I'll fix that spot and prime it, and then I'll have this thing ready to go. I can shoot it separately off the car, and I'll pull the car in after that primer's cured up, after that one night of it sitting. I can paint that spot the next day, put everything on it probably the day after or late that day that I paint the quarter panel trim piece, and I can be done with it the next day after I assemble it. So it's really kind of a 2-day job here. I may end up going to a 3rd day to get it installed if I don't have time to do it that 2nd day. But I'll get the car here. It's Tuesday night. I'll get it here Thursday night and start on the quarter panel here. But I want to go ahead and get this ready to go. So as soon as the car gets here, I can do the repair there, and then I can paint this the very next day. Even with that, or paint it, move it over there, and then pull the car in and do the other piece. But I want to have plenty of room to work to spray this, and that car is massive, so it's going to take up this entire area right in here, and I'm not going to have a lot of room to do that, so I'm going to do that by itself. See you then. Okay, I've got the scratch filled and blocked out. I did want to dish it out a little bit, but it was so deep. I don't think it was so deep that I would have gone through it, but I would have taken out a lot of material to dish that out to make it not have an edge on the edge of the scratch there in the filler. But I'm going to put enough primer on that just to cover it up and let it sit for 2 or 3 days, so I don't think I'm going to have too much of a shrinkage issue to where it'll even show. And then it'll get adhesion promoter, sealer, base, and clear over it too, so I'm going to have plenty of paint to cover it up. And I could have let it feather a little bit and left it a little bit thick right there, but to get a coarse enough scratch in the plastic where I could feather out that repair compound, it would have had to have been probably 180 to like 220, 240. And I don't want to put a rough enough scratch in there like that for that to have feathered, because then it'll be a problem. It'll probably show in my primer. So I think this is probably safer than doing it rough enough to get a feather edge in that. I've got it wiped off now. I just wet sanded that with 400 on a block. Just had it on a little paint stick block here that I made with paint, half of paint sticks, which is 4 halves of 2 paint sticks, and just some tape. I just blocked it down with 400, then I finished it off with 6. I'm going to clean it real quick with water-based wax and grease remover. You don't want to put any solvent base on raw plastic. And do that, and we'll shoot a little coat. It's about two coats of primer on, maybe 3. We'll thin it a little bit, so because these scratches aren't very deep that I've got in the plastic, because I don't want it to show. So I'm going to thin the primer a little bit to make sure that it bites in and flows down into the scratches. I'm going to go get some primer mixed up. Okay, I've got the primer on those 3 coats. I actually thinned it decent amount, so it's probably got 2 coats equivalent to just a normal mix. Got a little guide coat on it too. Threw some paper on it so I wouldn't get any primer dust on this exposed plastic that I'm not going to paint. So this can be pulled off now, and I'll wet sand that out with 600 when I get ready to paint it. And then I'll go ahead and tape all my edges and scuff those hard edges that are going to be in it. It'll be ready to go once I wipe it down. See you then. Okay, the Sequoia's here. Here's the damage. Rear bumper. She has done this 2 or 3 times already, so I think these are still good. I've saved them the past 2 times I've done this. Dented this in 2 places. Gap's a little wide here, but it's even with the tail light, so I don't know if maybe it was like that before. Not quite sure, and it's not really pushed in very far, so I don't know if the gap opened up or not. May just have to leave that. It's a little bit wider than this, but it's not off that much. Bumper's also torn right in here, so would have needed a new one for that anyway, because that's into the texture. That's not even painted, so I'm going to go ahead and get this off. And I think I can get behind here with maybe with my PDR tools after I get the bumper out of the way. It's open back behind here. I'm going to pull the bumper off, get that out of the way. This is the side I actually repaired the last time. I think I put a bumper on it. Replaced this panel. It goes around to here. It's riveted to the body. And she actually dented the gate, and I've repainted the gate. Have done some work down the side. This is the one I did some videos on where it was shot. I didn't show the repair, but it was shot through, I think, this side with a rifle. Maybe in the other side, but it went all the way through the door skin, the door frame, tore the leather seats. It tore through this cover and got this cover a little bit. I replaced these 2 leather covers. Those are OEM. Went through that door panel and out, almost out, well, actually out the other side when it broke up in 3 pieces. So I actually repaired this door skin, and I just put some seam sealer in the hole on the door frame. There's no reason to actually fix that. I just coated it so it wouldn't rust. Replaced this trim panel, these 2 seat covers, like I said, and that trim panel. Seam sealed the inside of the door frame, and then fixed the holes on the outside, welded those up. That was a pretty big job. It actually cut, there's a door wiring harness running right through the middle, and it actually got right through the wiring harness and cut every wire in it. Couldn't have done that again if they tried. So what I did then was I painted this door and blended this way into the front door. And back when I did the rear repair, I did the gate, bumper, this piece, and there was some damage in here that I had to tap down because it pushed in the quarter panel. Fixed that, blended this side, so I've painted all the way across the rail down to the front. And I think I did this panel too and went down the rail. So I think this door right here, I may have actually blended, since the damage was back here, I may have blended this way. That's why I painted that, but I remember having to do something here. And I think she actually did have a dent back here I fixed while I was doing it. So I've painted all the way down this rail, so it was continuous. So I think the only thing I haven't painted on this thing is the front driver's door and the front end. This is about the third or fourth time I've had this car for something like this. It's the third bumper I've put on it, and I fixed the bullet hole, so I guess that makes 4. We can go ahead and get the bumper off, and I'll show you what it looks like behind there. Alright, I got the bumper off. Takes about 10 minutes, not too bad. And a bunch of screws down the outside, and they're coarse threads, so they run out real fast. There's 2 here at the bottom, go underneath to a bracket, 1 there, bolt there. That's actually a machine screw type. 1 there, 1 connector. This connector runs up somewhere like this to the body, and got 2 clamps on it on the bumper rebar back there. So I just open that up, unplug it, it's done. Now these little rubber seals, these little elliptical seals go right there to seal this to the body, I guess to keep moisture and water or whatever out of the getting through the screw into the screw threads. Not sure why that's there. It's either that or it's just a spacer. But there's 6 of these. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on the back of the car, and there's 1 of those on every one of these. And I think maybe they have a sticky side when they're new, and they stick them to the bumper and then put them on the car, or either stick them. They either stick it to the car. Typically what I do is I get the bumper up here loosely, and then I'll pull it back and just slip it back behind there, or either glue it to the bumper. I'll decide what I want to do later, but that's got to go around each one of those holes. 1 there, there's 6 of them, all the way across. And typically when she does this, she breaks this bracket, and she breaks the side bracket. Let's see if that happened. I know it happened in the front. What happens is the bumper wraps around the front and screws in this way. So as she pushes the bumper that way, it just rips the end of this bracket off. So I went ahead and bought that because I figured that happened, and it did. And this piece right here looks like something's happened to it because it is loose. I think there's a clip that goes in back here, and there's 1 bolt. I bought that piece too, so probably gonna need it. I'll get that off and show you what it looks like behind there. But this is the original panel here. You can see there's a factory rivet there and right there. This one over here, I've put a different rivet in right there, and that's the bottom of this piece is still black where I clamped it to paint it. There's another rivet. And I think I put some sealer behind that or something whenever I did it. So you can see where she pushed in the quarter right here. I had to seal this plug because I couldn't get that hole completely straight again. So I sealed around that plug. I may put some sealant around these rivets while I'm at it, just to make sure they're sealed. I didn't put any sealer there, but it's probably sealed so tight that water really can't get in it anyway. But I may go ahead and seal it while I have the bumper off. That's essentially all I got to do is paint that, pop this piece in the bracket off, replace them, fix these dents here, and I can get back behind here. It'll be a little bit easier once I get this bracket off, but I can get back behind here and hopefully pry the dents out, and not have to put any studs on it, because that would help me. I wouldn't have to come in to spray any cavity wax back behind it later. So I'm going to try to do that. Got the bumper primed on the repair area. When you get this wet sanded with 600, mask off my areas with the tape, scuff that, and try to get that painted today. We got a bad storm coming later, so I may not get it done. May have to do both of these tomorrow. But the goal was to paint the bumper, move it out of the way, because you can see how much room this takes up. But I might just bag it, spray the bumper right here beside it, something like that, because I need to have the car over, as far over as I can get it that way. So I can get all these. That one I'm trying to sell for somebody. That one is the Accord I just finished. It's already sold. I'm just waiting on a title. So I got to get these 3 over, kind of compress this. Try to get my wife's car, which is in the front of the house. Try to get it in here. And I need to squeeze my car in here too, if I can. I may actually just pull it halfway in, get it running that direction under the doorway, and leave the door up. But at least got to get it under cover in case this storm does bring some hail. We had a bad hailstorm about 4 years ago, and it was good for me because I had a year's worth of work in the garage, but he got both of my cars, and I'm not going to let that happen either to customers or myself again if I can help it. I'm going to go get this started, get this cleaned, and start doing the dent work and get it primed. That way, in case I can't paint the bumper today, that'll at least be done. I can paint them both tomorrow. Okay, I've got the side bracket installed. It's just 3 screws, and right in here there's an actual just clip with a seal. I don't know why they didn't put a screw there, but the last time she did this, what I did was, this part right here was still hanging on enough that I was able to slip on a speed nut, actually in this direction, put a speed nut in it, and I was able to bolt the front of the bumper in, because it's got 3 or 4 other bolts in it. This was basically just to hold the very tip of it in, so that was not a big deal. I just did that and saved this piece. This thing's like $75. Seal there, and there, and she had actually broken this one the last time. That's the only one that didn't have a screw in it. So what I did the last time, I covered this up with silicone and stuck it to the body. When I screwed it down, it just sealed the hole. It still had the little white seal around it, but I just put just a real thick bead of silicone on it and stuck it to the car, and that worked fine. I knew she'd do it again anyway, so I wasn't real worried about it, as long as I wasn't letting water in. And this piece up here, the one on the corner, this is what the new one looks like. It actually has two clips and 2 seals. Top has a screw, bottom does not, and it just broke the bottom clip off. So I did need that. That's probably $50 or $60 right there. That one screw goes in the top. So I will get that put on in a corner bracket support. I'll get that put on after I finish the work in here. This right here actually came back and got a little bit of damage right on the corner of it. You can see where it touched the quarter panel. And over there on the other side, there's probably 3/16 gap between that and the quarter panel. So I'm gonna have to pull it out. This has got to come out about 1/8 of an inch, and then I'll work the dents. I may test fit the bumper, I don't know yet. Over there, I got it attached to my rack. I'm not real worried about it. I think it'll fit for sure. As long as I get this out, get this gap back in here, I should be fine. Because I know this gap was fine, and right in here, it's not really an issue. So if I just get that out where it's supposed to be, then that curvature will match the bumper. I'm going to work on pulling it out and then work the dents out. I've got this PDR tool. I'm going to try to get in here and just rock the dents out. This double bend tool. I got one longer one that's heavier, but it's for a lot more power. I don't think I can use that because it's not bent enough. We'll get that out and be back when I get ready for some filler. We got it worked out. It's paper thin, so I put a bunch of pock marks in it, just pushing it out a little bit. But I've got it hammered down a little to flatten them out a little bit on the top. And I've got it to where I got the arc in it. I don't feel any real high spots where I worked it out. So I'm just going to grind all this off. I'm just going to grind it first so that I can knock the tops of all the pock marks off. And then I'll come back with an 80 grit disc and I'll take all the finish off all the way around this. And just wipe one coat of filler. That should be all I need. Be back when I got it cleaned off. Alright, she's ready for some filler. Got it ground away and ran around it with 80 grit to feather the paint back. We go get some filler mixed up, be right back, put it on. Alright, the filler's on. It's so hot out here I couldn't stop and turn the camera on to film it. I mixed it up, didn't have the camera on already, so I just wiped it on real quick and it started to harden right as I got done. So that's it. Let that harden up for probably 20-30 minutes or so. I'll come back with a block and I'll block it around this way. Just get that arc in it, get it flat, and I'll get some primer mixed up and put on it. It needs to set up for really an hour or two probably before you put your primer on it. It needs to get fully cured. Okay, bodywork's done. I got it masked off along this seam. I've got the tape where it's just about touching the panel here just to seal it off for primer. I'm not going to spray all the way around that edge, so I can't have it touching a little bit. Got the taillight masked. I'm not going to take the taillight out. It's not super difficult to get out, but it's not really worth it on this. I can sand all the way underneath it. I can get under there. No problem. I've got a piece of paper underneath just to cover everything up on the inner quarter, but I've got some 1.5-inch tape that I put along the bottom edge and rolled it back. This just to keep the primer off the bottom. I've got some epoxy set up. I mixed it about 20-30 minutes ago so that I had time to scuff all this with a red pad, mask it off, and by the time I got done with that, the epoxy would just about be ready. Normally I would try to do that while I'm blocking the, right after I block the filler out, before I come back and feather the paint out with the DA, but I forgot to do it. It needs 30 minutes induction time. So that's about to set up. I'll come over the bare metal with that, and I'll mix up some 2K urethane to go over the entire area after about an hour flash on the epoxy. Be back in just a second with that. Alright, I've got a ½ ounce of epoxy mixed in the gun. I'm just going to spray over the bare metal. I've got the fan opened up, so I may just end up hitting it all, because by the time I get this area of metal and this over here, it's going to basically overlap. So I may just do one pass over the whole thing and let that be good. Looks good. Let this sit up for about 45 minutes to an hour, and I'll be back with the regular primer. Alright, well, the storm came through. Had a power outage right as I needed to get out here and prime this, so I'm out here with a flashlight. I've got 2 coats on it. I had enough air in the tank that I don't need the compressor to run, so I'm going ahead and just doing this because it's got to be painted tomorrow. It's about 5-minute flash on second coat now. I'm waiting about 10 more minutes and I'll do a third right there on the bodywork area. I did the whole area with the first coat, and then I stayed about 1 inch off the ends with the second one. I'm going to step it into the bodywork only on the third coat.